Hello you guys, Miss Steele here. I'm down here at the bottom and this thing right here is recording what I'm doing with my hands. So this week we have been talking about pattern, and pattern is any sort of color, line, shape, design that repeats itself again and again and again to make itself a pattern. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make some pattern mittens, and we're going to make a pattern border around them too. And we're going to use our own hands to draw our mittens. So for this project, you want a piece of paper. And then I have my two colored papers for my border. So I have one that's longer that I'm going to cut in half so I can have two borders. And the same with my bottom one and my top one. I'm going to cut this in half for my borders. If you don't have paper for your borders, you can just draw them on later. You want a pencil and an eraser. Pretty much, we always need them whenever we're making art. You want something to color with. For this project, I have crowns and markers. I have my crowns inside here. And then as well, you want glue and scissors for our border later. So glue, scissors, something to color with, our border papers, and then a white paper, an eraser, and a pencil. So what we want to do first is we want to trace our hand so we can get a mitten. And mittens, unlike gloves, don't have all the different little areas for your fingers. It just goes around your whole hand. So that is what we are going to do. So you want to have all your fingers together and then your thumb out. And you want to put it right here in the middle of the paper. And then we're going to trace around, but you don't have to get all these little bumps in here. You want to just go around it. So using one hand on the paper, pressing down, and then using my other hand, I'm going to trace around my hand. And if you see, I'm not making it perfect. I'm just kind of going around, and then I can go back and clean up my lines. Like that. So I had my hand down, and then I went around to make my mitten. And then you can go back and you can reshape your mitten if you want to. Maybe you want it to be a little bit thicker. And then I'm going to go back and erase the lines I don't need after. But right now I want to add a bottom to my mitten. And you can make the bottom of your mitten just straight if you want. But I think I want to add kind of a bumpy line at the bottom like this for the bottom of my mitten. So that's where I'd stick my hand in for my mitten. Maybe I want to make it a little bit bigger. That's why we always have an eraser close. So now what I can do is I can start coloring in and decorating my mitten using whatever pattern I like. I'm going to look on here and look around and see what patterns I like. I think I want to do kind of like a zigzag line or a curvy line with stripes. I like this one a lot. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to draw it in pencil, and then I'm going to color it in. You guys can add whatever pattern you want on the inside of your glove. You could do lines or shapes or just colors, whatever pattern repeats itself. But I think for this one, I'm going to add in kind of like this wavy line pattern. You guys could add in more than one pattern if you wanted to. That's definitely an option. Like this. And then I'm going to go back and add these lines in here. And that's going to be my pattern. If I wanted to, I could go back and even add patterns in between here. Like maybe I could add in some circles underneath. Whenever you're creating patterns, you can kind of just keep adding to it and make the pattern very much your own. Like that. So now instead of having just one pattern, I have two patterns. So now what I want to do is I want to outline this and get it colored in. And with pattern, you can repeat the same colors again, and that can be its own pattern as well. So repeating colors or lines or shapes or designs is all a pattern. So I'm going to get this colored in, and then we're going to come back so I can add our border on. All right, so I got my mitten all colored in with my pattern. So what I want to do now is, since this is all white, I'm going to pick this orange color and I'm going to color in my background just so it's not all boring and white. And I'm not going to add a pattern to my background because we're going to add a border onto it. You definitely could add a pattern to your background if you wanted to. But now I'm just going to color in my background, going around my mitten, just throwing in this color. And then we're going to move on to our border for our project. So I'm going to get this all colored in, and then we're going to start on our border. Right, so we have our pattern mitten, and I colored in my background. So now what I need to do is grab my borders, and I want to add a pattern onto my borders. You guys can add whatever pattern you want to your borders, but I think I am going to do stars or polka dots. I haven't decided yet, but you want to add a border around, or a pattern to your border. Sorry, my brain's thinking about what I want to do right here. I haven't decided on my pattern yet. Let's look at our example sheet. All right. I think I'm going to do stripes, and then I'm going to add in stars after for my pattern. So there's that, and you want to just color the whole thing, and then we're going to cut these in half after so we can get 2 pieces so we can have a border for all 4 pieces of our paper. And then I might go back and add some stars in, like that. So I'm going to add stars to this, and then we're going to get this cut out and glued onto our mitten, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so I have my pattern mitten done that we added a pattern on top of. And then I have my borders done, and I did a pattern of stripes and stars, but you can do whatever pattern you would like on your border. What I want to do now is I want to cut these in half so I can have 2 of them. So I can have one for my top and my bottom and my sides. So my longer one is for my side, my shorter one is for the top and the bottom. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip these over, and I'm going to draw a line. You can do your borders with a straight line if you want. You can do it with a zigzag line if you want, but I think I'm going to do mine with a wavy line like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to cut them out and glue them onto here. And I drew my lines on the back, so then whenever I cut them, you can't see my lines on the front. And I'm going down, going over. So I have these 2 cut, and now I want to cut out my other border. Like that. So now we have our 4 pieces and our paper. What I want to do is I want to add some glue onto these so I can get them glued on there. I want to remind you guys, a dot is a lot, and you don't want it to be all icky, sticky, and covered in glue. So be mindful about how much glue you're putting down. Whenever you glue it down, you want to hold it down for a second. I wish glue worked like magic, but it doesn't, so we need to hold it for a second. So there's our first border glued down. Now I'm going to glue down the other top border, making for sure it's lined up with my corners, holding it down for a second so it can get all glued. And now we need our 2 sides. So again, just a little bit of glue, enough to get it to stick, but not enough that it's squeezing out from the edges. And then I'm going to line this up and put it on the edge, like that. So now it's covering up a little bit of my mitten, but that's all right. I'm going to add on our last border. But that's why we want to draw our mittens in the middle, so then we can put our borders around it. And it all still like fits and you can see it. Like that. It's okay if your border cuts off a little bit of your mitten. If you want to go back and cut off a little bit of your border so you can see more of your mitten, you can do that. Like that. And then you can see a little bit more of my mitten. There we go. Maybe I'll trim up this a little bit too, just so it looks a little bit nicer. There we go. And that is it. If you want to go back and glue down any edges that are kind of flapping out, you can go back and glue down those. But that's it. And that is our pattern bordered mitten. We made our borders. We made our mitten using our hands. I'm so excited to see how your guys' projects come out. I hope you have a wonderful rest. Oh, wait. This is finished, by the way. I can't remember if I mentioned that. But I'm excited to see how your guys' work comes out. This is what it should look like, at least in general. Whenever you're finished, you should have your mitten in your border, a pattern here, a pattern there, and you'll be good to go. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, your evening, your afternoon, and I will see you guys next time.